All right, I think we are live. So hopefully you guys can all hear me okay, and hopefully you guys are having a good weekend here. Hopefully it's good weather where you guys are at, and I see we already have a few people here that have joined in and commented. Thanks to all of you for taking some time out of your weekend day here to hang out with us. Hopefully you enjoy it. We're gonna go for about 2 hours like we usually do. Same as all the other live streams where I'll be answering as many questions as I possibly can, but I will be giving priority to anyone that does super chats or super thanks or anyone who's members of the channel. That's one of the perks of becoming a member and joining is you get priority for your questions as well. So I'm going to keep an eye out for those people. They'll have the extra little badges next to their names. But otherwise, I usually do a pretty good job, I think, of being able to answer as many questions as possible here, even without all the special perks and stuff. But so we'll just get into some questions here. And if there's anything else you want to talk about car wise, we'll just talk about whatever. So lots of interesting stuff here has been coming out in the past few weeks if you watch the weekly updates. And anyway, I see we have first question or first comment here at Fastline says, "Hey Matt, although I don't comment on your videos, I still watch them all. I appreciate that. That's what keeps the channel going is you guys watching the videos. So I very much appreciate every single one of you who watches." And Moisey says, "Hope you've been well. Hope you guys have been well as well." And Jazz is here, I see. Thanks for joining. And Kevin says, "Good afternoon from Lakeland, Florida." I'm sure the weather is even nicer there than it is here. It's about 82 degrees here today. It's a pretty nice day, although we will have some thunderstorms supposedly rolling in a little bit later, but hopefully nothing here while we're live streaming, so I don't lose internet connection or power or anything like that. And so Skirt has a question here. He says, "Hey, Matt, when can you drive the Corolla GR? Love the videos." So thanks for watching the channel. GR Corolla reviews, I believe that event is happening in August. From what I heard, it's going to be a combined event with the manual Supra. So we'll be driving that and the GR Corolla sometime in August. I'm not sure exactly when just yet, but hopefully I'll find out soon. But, I'm not sure when the embargo will be. So even though we're driving them, sometime in August, the embargo might not be till September because I think GR Corolla is not coming to dealers until I think early fall is what I heard, if I remember correctly. So, I'm not sure exactly how the time is going to work out, but I'm guessing sometime August or September, you'll be seeing me review the GR Corolla, hopefully. So stay tuned for that. Shut Up Pish says, "Would you go for the Civic Type R or wait to see what the Acura Type S will look like?" We'll have to see. I mean, I think part of that comes down to personal preference. I think my bet would be the Type S Integra is going to basically be the same mechanicals as the Type R, considering the current Integra is the same mechanicals as an SI. I'm not expecting any more power over a Civic Type R, so I don't think you're missing out performance-wise. It's just a matter of, do you want to wait for that extra luxury? Do you want to wait for a vehicle that probably will not have a huge wing on the back and will have, obviously I think the new Civic has more, mature styling than the past generation. So, I don't think it's going to be super over the top, but just still have the huge rear wing as we saw, in all the spy pictures and videos. So I think it's really come down to personal preference. It is interesting though. I actually have an Integra this week as my press vehicle. And so I'll be posting up my review on that, not this coming week, but the week after that. It's just, the regular one, but it's the manual, A spec with the tech package. And I'll talk more about it in the review, obviously, but it's a good car. I think the Integras, are really good for people who want, those extra creature comforts, but it's not going to be, performance-wise, I think you are going to have a slight downgrade compared to the Civic. So it's really going to come down to, do you want luxury and you're okay with that little bit of a, compromise there on the performance or not? Just personal preference, I think. But both are going to be great, I'm sure. I'm very excited. I hope they do a little bit more powertrain-wise with the Type R than they did with the SI, where it was kind of a carryover. I mean, there was some changes, but I would hope to see the Type R having a good jump in power, but we'll have to see. Gil Rosado says, "What cars do you currently own, Matt?" As of right now, I have a 2019 Mustang Bullet. That's what I've had. It's gonna be about 4 years now. I'll actually be doing my 4-year video on that here in a couple of weeks. But aside from that, right now, my wife leases a Mercedes C300, but that lease is actually ending this week, and we'll have a couple weeks gap before the vehicle that we've ordered for her comes in, and I'm keeping that a secret still for now, and we're not going to disclose that until we're actually ready to post up about it and do a whole video explaining why we got what we got, because every time we get a new vehicle, it's always a lot of people, want you to get something else, or why did you get this over that, and all that. So I don't want to just like say something and then not have a whole video compiled of here's all the reasons why, so that you have a good explainer as far as, you know, why we went with what we went with. But we're really excited for her new vehicle. It's going to be really fun in a lot of ways. And so yeah, looking forward to that. But those are the only cars we currently have. I'd love to add more stuff down the road, but don't have the garage space or the money for it right now. So that's it. But I still love that Bullet Mustang. It's awesome. All right, so I see we had a few more questions here. I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom so that I'm not super behind on answering them here. But I see Jake says, hey, Matt, Jake here again. Are you allowed to share thoughts on the spy images of the new Accord? Yeah, I can definitely talk about anything, you know, I see online. It's just that I can't post spy pictures in the weekly updates anymore because it just costs more money to legally share those pictures than the videos make. So it's just a losing thing. If I were to buy all the spy photos you see from all the other publications every week, I would actually be losing money doing the videos. But yeah, I mean, the new Accord images look really promising. I think some people were saying it looks like it'll be a heavy refresh, which, you know, I mean, we'll have to see. They might have just kind of kept the window line. And there's a lot of vehicles where they do heavily rework everything. And so maybe if it still has the same window line, and maybe if it's still on an evolution of the current platform, that doesn't mean it's going to be bad or anything. I think the current Accord is fantastic already. So just modernizing it a little bit, you know, freshening up the looks, I think will be totally okay. Especially, you know, if the marketplace the way it is these days, you know, sedans being less and less popular. There's talks that Hyundai's getting rid of the Sonata altogether in a couple of years, and just they're going to quit selling any sedans aside from the compact sedan. You know, I think in this current climate we're in with car sales, I wouldn't blame Honda for just reskinning the current Accord and shipping it off. And so even if that's all they do, I'm honestly not going to be mad about it. So, but we'll see. They might have more than that up their sleeves. But yeah, I think it looks good though from what I can see so far. You know, it definitely is going to seem like take the same headlights from the CRV that we're seeing on the new CRV, and you know, a lot of other stuff they're sharing. It'll probably, if the CRV is any indicator, you know, that and the HRV and the Civic all have the same interior. So I'm guessing the Accord's going to have the same interior too. But we'll see, you know, what they have beyond that. And I don't know if you guys also saw, but there was new spy shots this past week of the Honda Pilot, which looks really nice and boxy and more trucky than the current generation. Should be a nice improvement. It kind of looks like a modern version of the second generation Pilots, and even the first gen in some ways. And so I'm excited to see that come out. Honda's saying this is the year of the SUV for them. So we know CRV is coming in July. Pilot will be coming probably, you know, not long after that. And then I believe there was talks that Accord could come towards the end of the year, but I don't think that's been confirmed yet. But basically, you know, it's going to be CRV, Pilot are going to be the two big things from Honda this year. But anyway, other questions here. The one Akea says, good afternoon, Mr. Maran. What are Mrs. Moran's thoughts on EVs and Mercedes-Benz EVs in particular? Are you planning to install an EV charger in your house within the next 10 years? EVs, so you're asking about Beth's opinion on them. She really likes them. I think she was pretty impressed. We had the Volvo XC40 Recharge last year, and she really enjoyed driving that. I think what she really likes about electric vehicles is that there's no transmission, you know, in most of them. And so, you know, because a lot of times with her, she's had bad transmission experiences in the past. She had a Ford Fiesta, which had that horrible, crappy automatic that had all kinds of issues. She had to have it replaced once at 4,000 miles, or the clutch for that dual clutch in that Fiesta. And then I think she had it replaced again the second time at like 11,000 miles or something. And even the Mercedes that she's had, they're not bad, but there's been a few times even where I'm like, what is this transmission doing? It's not a greatly programmed transmission, in my opinion. So I think one of the things she really likes about EVs is there's no transmission to worry about. It's just instant power. She really likes that direct connection. So I think that's, you know, something that she really does appreciate about the EVs that, you know, we have as press vehicles. And as far as Mercedes-Benz EVs in particular, since I'm sure she's a big fan of Mercedes. With their EVs, I mean, you know, we love the EQS. We haven't driven it yet or anything, but it's super cool. You know, that's like a dream car for her, you know, to have the EQS, but, you know, super expensive. We still love the Taycan as well. That'd be another like dream EV to own someday. But the EQB, you know, is a really cool thing. She really did like the GLB. And so the EQB, you know, being the same size, it's just a little tight with car seats and stuff. So I guess that's one thing I can say is we can roll out the GLB and the EQB as the next vehicle, because she really was, that was the original plan, was to get a GLB, but then whenever we had one as a loaner vehicle a couple of times here in the past couple of years, it was like, it doesn't fit a large car seat very well. As far as the last question there about planning to install an EV charger in your house in the next 10 years, I don't know if we're going to need to, because anytime I have a pressed vehicle that's an electric car, they usually arrive with close to a full charge, which means I already have at least 200 miles of range. And even if I never plugged it in for the whole week, I typically drive less than 150 miles each week in the pressed vehicles. So I would never run out of battery anyway. But even if I did want to top off, even just using, the normal 120 volt outlet in my garage, even if it only gives you 3 miles an hour of range or something like that, it's still, that would be enough to keep us topped off if I'm driving it, 10 or 15 miles a day on average. And I start with a full battery anyway. I don't think I need to bother with, doing a charger just yet. Maybe if we do drive a lot more down the road in the press vehicles or something, it could be something I'd add, but it's a bunch of money for something I don't think we're really going to get much use out of. But anyway, Carlos, thank you so much for the first super chat here of the live stream. He says, do you know when the GR Corolla prices are going to be announced? Figure you might have more of an idea. I'm trying to, because I talked to the Toyota PR guys about this back, whenever they launched the GR Corolla, and I'm assuming it'll probably come either during our press drive, so you could maybe count on those. That usually, that pricing falls under the embargo with the driving impression. So my guess is if pricing is ready, sometimes pricing for some of these cars just isn't ready. They haven't finalized it, so they don't want to give us a number. So sometimes, I'll do a review and I'll be like, I don't have pricing for you yet. I don't know how much it's going to cost, but it'll be somewhere around this price and this price, so it could go either way with that. I'm guessing they'll give it to us by the time, we do the press launch. And so, again, sometime in August or September, hopefully. Could be sooner. They could surprise everyone by just dropping it online, at some point here in the next couple of months, or it could even be sometime, after our drive as well. So I unfortunately don't have a good idea. They didn't give me any kind of inside scoop, because a lot of that stuff also comes from higher up, people that are making the decisions as far as what they're going to price it at. But I would say, if you are someone who's, considering a GR Corolla, but you're worried about the pricing on it, a lot of times Toyotas aren't the cheapest in their segment. They never really are. You pay a premium for a RAV4 usually compared to its other vehicles it competes against, not by a large amount, but I'm hoping that, they do price it competitively, but I also want to I guess precondition people to, kind of prepare for the fact that it might not be a screaming bargain, because, they're only making 6,000 of them or something in the first year. It's going to be limited. Toyota deliberately said they're going to build one less than they have demand for. Essentially, that's their goal, is to have, more demand than cars, so that they don't have to worry about anything sitting on lots. They want to keep them special and exclusive, and that's how you do that, unfortunately. So, I don't know. I mean, if I were to venture a guess, I would say it will probably match Golf R pricing. I don't think it will undercut Golf R pricing. So we're saying, 45 grand or something, that might be on the high side. But I mean, with inflation these days and just pricing in general, and the fact that this thing has a hand-built engine in Japan, these things are, built by the same craftsmen that do a lot of the other high-end stuff for Toyota and Lexus. You're going to pay a premium for all that stuff as well, and the exclusivity, and that's assuming you get it at MSRP. So, I would just prepare for, a little bit of sticker shock there on those for sure. I could be wrong. I would be overjoyed if they surprised everyone with a 35 grand starting price, and, they actually were able to get their dealers to sell them all at MSRP. But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be realistic these days. So, we'll have to see, but that would be my best guess. Sorry, I don't have better info for you though. Kyle, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, hey Matt, DL, Beth's new car is that Escalade V, right? Have a good weekend. Thanks to you too, Kyle. And thank you also for being a member, Kyle. I really appreciate the support as well. But Escalade V would be another dream family vehicle. But yeah, I could not afford that, and couldn't even afford the gas to run that thing, even if I could afford the price tag. But it was sweet. That was such a fun vehicle. It's just one of those vehicles that comes at the exact wrong time, as far as just super high gas prices. Not that people paying that much money care that much, but it doesn't make it any easier to own for sure. Thanks so much for the super chat. I see we have another one from Angel U. Thank you so much for the super chat. He says, have you kept up with any of your old cars? That Mini Cooper was a lemon. Yeah, so I think it was last year that I did a look back video on where all my old cars are again, and kind of to follow up. You can search on the channel for, I think it's, where are my old cars, or if you type in old cars and Carfax, something like that, it might come up. Yeah, the Mini is one of the ones that weirdly like dropped off the record. I don't think there was very much for it that I found back whenever I kind of did all the Carfaxes on them last year, because I was really curious, like, did they replace an engine? Did they do something else with it? But yeah, I wasn't able to find any records on it, unfortunately. So I don't know. But the other old cars, though, yeah, they've my first car I think is still sitting in a junkyard, so I don't think that one ever came back to life or anything. And then the other ones, the Spec B is still owned by the same lady in Florida that I think has had it for several years now. And the BRZ, I think last I checked, was up to 140,000 miles and still running strong. Still seems like that had no real issues. And the Mustangs, I think they're all doing well as well. So yeah, I don't think there's any new updates, but you can check out that video from last year if you did miss that, because I go into a lot of the details and show all this stuff on that if you missed that. But thank you so much once again for the super chat. Nick says, I'm thinking about getting a new GR86 in a few years because I'm under 18, so I can't legally buy a car. Any thoughts on the new GR86? I love them. I was on the press launch, got to take them around the racetrack, got to spend a week with one just a few weeks back. So if you check out the channel, that one should still be on the homepage there if you just scroll through the reviews a little bit there, or you can just search on the channel. But I have all my thoughts on the GR86s. I really love spending a week with it. It was fantastic. Love them. I love it so much that if I didn't have my Mustang Bullet, that would be the car that I would own right now, as a GR86, because I love them that much. So that's about the highest endorsement I can give that car. It's well worth owning for sure. It's also a really good starter car too for someone who's just learning driving and wanting to kind of get familiar with rear-wheel drive driving dynamics. It's playful and fun, so you can still, it still has an edge, and if you're silly with it, it can still bite back. But overall, it's pretty tame as far as it's not going to be too wild, and it's a really good car to learn rear-wheel drive stuff with. So definitely recommend. Blood, Sweat, and Gear says, have you driven an electric car yet? Yeah, I've driven a bunch of them. So there's a few different reviews. So I did several years back, I reviewed a Tesla Model S. I think back in 2018. I did the new P100D version of the Model S whenever those came out. And then I've done the Ioniq 5. I did the Mach-E, and I did a few others as well. So I've done a bunch of them. So if there's any electric cars you're curious about my thoughts on, you can definitely check them out on the channel there and hear all my thoughts on them. But they're a lot of fun. The only one that was really underwhelming to me, I did the Volkswagen ID4. That was kind of blah. It was okay. It's just, from someone who's an enthusiast, I want something a little bit more exciting, and that just didn't really have much excitement. But it was a good point A to point B kind of car still, aside from the annoying infotainment. But yeah, I think all the electric cars that are out there currently are pretty impressive for the most part. I see we have Newt Media here joining in. Thanks for moderating and for swinging by, man. He says, I'm hoping they put Brembos on the new 86 cars soon. Stock brakes are sufficient, but would be nice to see. Definitely agree. It's kind of surprising they didn't offer that right out of the gate. I guess, they have this mantra of wanting to keep it fresh with a new special edition every year, but they already showed off the 2023s, and there's no new track package or performance package like the previous generation. So yeah, not sure why that's the case. So I'm hoping they do something soon, but I'm guessing 2023 is not going to have it, so we still got to wait a little bit longer. But I think they know also people are just going to do it in the aftermarket, and a lot of that stuff should probably swap over from the previous generation too, to hopefully soften the blow a little bit. But it's still all aftermarket stuff, for the most part. Diego895, who's a member here, I'm going to answer his question here first and then get to the super chat. But Diego says, cool to see the weekly newsroom from a different angle. Yeah, this is like the wider angle of what else is in the room here. So it's a small room. It probably looks bigger than it actually is. It's fairly small, but That wall of shelves is really nice to have all my stuff there. And thanks for being a member, Diego. I really appreciate it. I'll keep an eye out if you have any other questions here in the live stream. But thanks for joining. SLMD Sedan, thank you so much for the super chat. And he says, "Hey Matt, love your videos. Thoughts on the 2020 BMW M5? The new M5s are awesome. I think the 2018 version, and I believe it's basically the same. So if you want to hear more thoughts on my M5 review, is going to have all the thoughts in that video. But 2021, I think, is basically the same, but they're very impressive. I mean, it's one of these vehicles that just rips your head off with acceleration. It's super fast. It still handles so well. It feels lighter than its curb weight would suggest. They did a really good job with the new M5. I love that it has the rear-wheel drive mode. They're awesome cars for sure. It's one of those kind of cars that'll just do it all and just does everything super, super well. So yeah, very impressed with the M5s. The Etsy, thank you so much for joining. Another member here. He says F-150 Lightning seems to be selling well enough. Starting to see them a lot lately. Interesting. I have not seen one yet on the road. That's cool that you're starting to see them pop up already. I'm not sure how many they've sold because I know they just started rolling off the line here a couple of weeks, maybe a month or two ago. So I mean, that's a pretty quick turnaround. That's awesome that you're seeing them. I'll be excited to see one because I don't think I've actually ever seen one in person still. So I'm excited to see how they look. But I'm hoping to review one at some point. Ford is real slow with sending me press cars. So I don't know, maybe I'll get one next year or something, but I'm hoping to try one out at some point because I think that really has the potential to be the one that really moves the needle, I think, and kind of takes the ball from Tesla that really made everything mainstream, sold millions. I think F-150 Lightning is going to be the next one to now, take the torch and sell millions and really, make EVs a lot more mainstream here. But yeah, so anyway, thanks for joining. New Media says, I've seen a bunch of Rivians running around recently. I'm surprised they're as popular as they are. I know, I've actually seen a couple of Rivians up here in Wexford recently as well. And I was on a press trip a couple of weeks ago, and I saw one also running around Phoenix, Arizona. But yeah, for a truck that's that expensive, I'm kind of surprised I'm seeing so many of them still. So it's very exciting, and I'm still not sure where Rivian owners get their cars serviced at. I don't know what the deal is with servicing for those, but I don't think they have any kind of service centers even remotely close. But I guess that doesn't stop Polestar buyers either, because I've seen a few Polestar 2s around here. And like in Pittsburgh, if your Polestar 2 breaks down, they take it on a flatbed and they ship it to Washington, D.C., because that's the nearest service center. Because for some reason, Volvo dealers aren't eligible to work on them. I don't know why Polestar is not leveraging the Volvo dealers, but it's kind of crazy. So it's kind of weird with some of those, more niche EV car companies, the way they're going to be doing that. We'll see how that goes over for them. Carlos Molina says, hey guys, quick question. So I have a 17 Focus RS. It has like 90,000 miles. Wow, you drive a lot. That's awesome. I've had no issues with it at this point in its life. Is it worth it to mod it, like going stage 1 to 2? I mean, everyone else can certainly weigh in if they want, but I think my opinion is that if you are happy with it, you've been happy for the past 90,000 miles, I would leave it. I think especially if you're, worried about having issues, one good way to start having issues with your car is to mod it. Unfortunately, it just comes with the territory. A lot of mild mods are fine, and there's people running stage 1 and stage 2 cars for 200,000 miles, no problem. But, you push anything more than its original design is, meant to do, and it's just only a matter of time before it's going to put more stress on everything. So, yeah, that's your call. Obviously, everyone wants different things and has different risk tolerances, but yeah, I would just leave it personally if it were me, but I'm someone who's paranoid about reliability. So that's why I kind of got out of the modding thing for, several years ago. And so, yeah, Newton Media says if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I agree. E-Train, thank you so much for another super chat. He says 50-year-old male wants to learn manual. Any recommendation on make, model, new, used? Plus the preference would be to put winter tires on it too. Well, so I think one of the easiest cars to learn manual on that I've noticed is I'm trying to remember the correct generation number, but the Civic Si is the last ones that were naturally aspirated. Whatever generation that is. It was like 2014 was the last year for those ones. Those were super easy, super nice light clutch, very forgiving. The manual shifter is super precise. It's a ton of fun as well. and it's also, pretty cheap and still super reliable, very easy to handle and everything. Obviously, I don't know what your budget is as far as what you're, looking to spend, but yeah, ninth gen. Thank you, Zach, for his chiming in. Ninth gen Civics. That would be the one that I would recommend as like an easy manual to learn on. There's also some of the brand new manuals that are really good to learn on, like the Corolla manual, even though that has a decent amount of rev hang. That has what's called the intelligent manual transmission, where it'll do rev matching for you, and it'll also kind of help you to not stall. They have a very complicated process as far as what they do in the background to help you, but it was designed to help you learn manual a little bit easier. But I would just say any manual that doesn't have a lot of rev hang will be easier, because even me, I mean, I've been driving manual at this point. It's been, I started driving since I was 16. I'll be 32 next month. So 16 years I've been driving manual, and I still, with some of these cars with rev hang, I am driving like I just learned manual last week, because it's like so jerky trying to guess where this rev hang is going to end up, putting the RPMs at. So, don't feel bad if you're not perfectly smooth, especially on a newer car. But a lot of the older stuff that doesn't have the rev hang tuned in, it's going to be fairly straightforward. I would just say stay away from muscle cars. The muscle cars have really heavy clutches. The shifters aren't very precise, so they're going to be hard to be smooth with and learn. Like my Mustang Bullet has a really tricky clutch that still is, even after 4 years of driving, sometimes, especially if I've been driving another manual and I'm used to a different catch point, and then I get into the Bullet, it's like really, I'm like being jerky all over again. So, yeah. And then honestly, though, it also comes down to, like if you really just want to learn manual well, it doesn't hurt to just buy a $500 beater. Buy some junked out Miata, that's 20 years old or something like that, and get all the hard manual learning done on that thing, and then take it to the junkyard or flip it or something, and then get the nice manual car you want after you've done all your abuse. Because that's one thing I felt so bad. The first manual car I owned was a Legacy GT Spec V 2006, and that thing had like 15,000 miles on it. It was super pristine. And the first day I got it, one of my coworkers was like, there's a hill right down the street here. We got to go on that hill, and you have to learn to not roll back on this hill, because this was before hill holder clutches, really. So I went on this hill after I got done with work. The first day I bought my brand new, 1-year-old Spec B, just roasting the clutch, trying to figure out how to like not roll back on a hill. It was so painful. So, if it's a car you're really excited about, maybe don't learn on that car, because you're going to feel real bad that you're going to, burn up the clutch a little bit learning and stuff. That's just part of the process. So it doesn't hurt to get something crappy first, and then, move on to something nice if you can afford to go that route. But yeah, so hopefully that helped you get a little bit of insight without throwing too many options in your face. But thank you so much once again for the super chat. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions as well. Carlos has another question here. He says, out of all the press cars you get, what's your favorite manufacturer that gives you press cars? So I guess, I would just say that like some of the ones that give me press cars the earliest and give them to me the easiest are the ones that I prefer working with the most. Toyota and Lexus are one of the best ones, where I'm usually one of the top people on their list. Like the second, they're done on the launch programs or whatever, like they get them to me really quickly. They're just super good. Like, I mean, even back whenever, COVID was like in its early stages and they weren't doing any launch events, like, whenever the Super was being launched for the 2021s that had the revisions to the engine and stuff, like I was one of the first people that they sent that to. And, I was very, very just thankful for that. I also really am thankful to Honda and Acura. They kind of, whenever they sent me the NSX for a week, that was like, not like it sways my opinion at all, because I'm totally unbiased and I will roast the car if it's terrible. I don't care what the repercussions are. But, when they sent the NSX, I was like, okay, like they value my opinion so much at Honda and Acura that they will literally send a driver 4 hours up from DC in an NSX and trust me with this $170,000 NSX or whatever it was for a week. It was a very large vote of confidence that, hey, like, they actually value me. I'm, someone who, is just worth sending an NSX to, which is a very humbling, feeling to have. So they're another one, but, yeah, I'd say anyone like that sends me stuff really easily is very nice. And so, but yeah, some of the others, it's really tough. It's also kind of tough with the electric vehicles too, because there's two different fleet companies. One fleet company has figured out very easily how to send electric vehicles up. The other fleet companies still, it's like a big headache to send electric vehicles to me. So that's why I have not reviewed a Mach-E GT. That's why I haven't reviewed the F-150 Lightning. That's why I haven't done the EV6. A bunch of electric vehicles I've been asking for that all are under that one fleet company that I'm just waiting for them to figure out how to flatbed it to me, because they, for some reason, don't want to send a driver and just have them stop the charge. I guess that's too much to ask. So they got to figure all that stuff out. So that's why there's some of these ones I'm waiting on. But yeah, so I'd say definitely Toyota, Lexus, Honda, and Acura, to answer your question, Carlos, are some of the easiest ones to work with. But a lot of other companies are really good. Like Audi recently, the past couple of years, have been sending me vehicles, and it's really nice. For a while there, they weren't able to because of the distance, because I get all my press cars from DC. But Audi to finally give me the ability to review their cars was really nice a couple of years back. So they're another one that's great to work with these days. Levanti says, I'm curious to know which manufacturers give you the most issues to send press vehicles. Like Ford is one of the slowest. I have no clue why, because Ford, they liked me enough to give me priority ordering for the Bullet. I have VIN number 12 for the Bullets. Someone reached out to me and they were like, hey, you're a VIP. We want to get you in one of the first Bullets off the production line. And they recognize that. But then whenever it comes to press vehicles, it's like I'm waiting a year after a car has been launched and everyone's already bought them. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll send you this, old press car with 20,000 miles on it instead. So, they're unfortunately a little bit tricky sometimes. And Ford also, they're an interesting company sometimes to work with. I love them as a company. They're doing awesome stuff. I love my Mustang Bullet. I love Mustangs and stuff. So I'm not throwing any shade at Ford, but just from my job standpoint, they're a little tougher to work with sometimes. But Goth Rocker, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, Matt, saw your video. Do you think the new Z will sell well? I think they screwed up, should have priced it better. The base doesn't even give you a limited slip differential. I think it'll fail. Sad. Yes, I agree. And I've had a lot of conversations with other car reviewers about this as well. And it seems like it's almost unanimous. Everyone is like, why do they not have a limited slip diff package? Like, why did they bundle it the way they did? And I have no good answer for you. And I mean, I was gasping. I was like actually trying to hold back my shock at the presentation whenever they were like, yeah, so the Z is going to be coming out, blah, blah, blah. And it's going to be costing, $39,990 or whatever for the base one. I'm like, okay. And they're like, and then for the performance version, which is the only one that has all this good stuff, it'll be $50,000. And I think I actually did go wide-eyed for a second. I was like, what? I was just as shocked as everybody else when I saw that pricing. The thing is, I think even if they charged $3,000 just to add on the limited slip diff, which by the way would be way too much money, they'd have a huge profit margin if they did that. But even if they did, I think a $43,000 base Z with a limited slip diff would have completely changed everyone's perception on the Z. But I think right out of the gate, you price it at the same price as Super, basically, for what is worse performance in my opinion, a worse interior in my opinion. They just, I don't know. I mean, maybe, my only hope is that they are deliberately price gouging this year because they know that they're going to sell every single one that they build still, because chips are limited. They don't care about selling a ton of Zs. They obviously care enough to put out a new version, but that's not the concern for them. They're more worried about doing all the other mass volume stuff. So, I don't know. It's super frustrating because I was very excited for the Z. I think it had a lot of promise, and it's on old bones, but I was totally okay with that if the pricing, lined up with that, but it doesn't anymore. So yeah, I'm really sad that they screwed up the Z. I totally agree about that. It's really a shame. So it is what it is. I'm hoping maybe once the chips things, get caught up, that they will bring it back down to reality and say, hey, wait a minute, maybe we should do a limited slip diff package for $3,000 or $2,000 and sell a ton more. Maybe that's their strategy to keep it fresh in a few years. Once they get all the diehard people that have, blank checks to just be like, here, I'll pay whatever. Once those people are out of the way, maybe then they'll be like, oh, wait, we need to actually price this competitively and bring down the pricing to reality. But we'll see. it's a bummer. I could rant about that all day, but I'm sure. Yeah, I see Orion and a few of you others are agreeing. It's really, really sad. Edgar's also asking, Veloster N discontinued confirmation yet? Not yet. I talked about that in the weekly update here on Friday, which I'm sure you saw. But since then, no updates. So I'm guessing, July obviously is a few days away. So we'll see if we get an official confirmation sometime in the next few days. But it's probably true. Unfortunately, Veloster N is going to go away. And at least we still have the Elantra N, which is awesome as well. Tu Chang, thank you so much for being a member. And it'll save you a bunch of money, because Tu Chang, every live stream, he does a bunch of super chats. And so now you can just ask all the questions you want, and you get priority, because that's one of the perks here of being a member. So thanks for joining. I really appreciate it. He says, does the Celica / RX-7 rumor make sense? So yeah, he DM'd me a few days ago that there's a rumor that, and this is really interesting, I had not heard this. I'm very appreciative that you even brought this to my attention, that the Toyota Celica is potentially coming back as a partnership with Mazda for a new RX-7, which is far-fetched in some ways, because, I would say that maybe Mazda will do a sports car. I don't think they will call it an RX-7. We saw that there was the leaked coupe that was revealed in patent images, last year. And there was really detailed engineering drawings for that showed this was more than just some nice, pretty concept car. Like, this was something that has been heavily engineered extensively. There's been a lot of money put into, doing all this engineering stuff. That, there's a real Mazda coupe in the works. Whether or not it comes to life ever remains to be seen, but they're pouring a ton of money into engineering, whatever it is that they're doing with that thing. So Mazda has some two-door on the way, I think. And then the rumor was that the Celica could be what they're partnering up on. My only problem with that is, the Mazda thing, I believe, was going to be rear-wheel drive, or maybe all-wheel drive, but to be a rear-wheel drive-based all-wheel drive system, because that's what Mazda is going to with a lot of their newer stuff. Celica, that's like polar opposite of anything Celica. I mean, you could do obviously an all-wheel drive Celica, going back to history, but as far as the front-wheel drive-based compact car, economy car-based Celicas, it would be upmarket. So it would be Celica in name, but not really in spirit, in my opinion, especially if it's not all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive. Obviously there was the Celica Supra as well, if you want to get technical with history and stuff. So technically you could have a rear-wheel drive Celica, and it's historically still accurate, but I don't know about that. I think it makes sense, since Mazda is already partnering up with Toyota on factories and stuff, it certainly makes sense they could partner up on a sports car. And, obviously we know that Toyota loves those kind of partnerships, and so does Mazda. Mazda partnered up with, Fiat there on the 124 Abarth, for the Miata and stuff. So both of them are fine with sports car partnerships, and that's honestly probably the only way we'll ever see a new RX-7 or Celica. But obviously for it to be an RX-7, it would have to have a rotary engine. I don't think Toyota would do a rotary engine. So just that kind of thing seems far-fetched, but I do think there could be some legitimacy to the idea of Toyota and Mazda working on a two-door car together. Beyond that, everything else seems a little iffy, but I think that fundamental rumor could be legit and actually, hold some weight. We'll have to see, but very interesting for sure. So other questions here. Sang Lee says he'd gladly pay 5,000 markup for a Z. And so there you have it. That's the thing. It's a totally up to, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and Nissan knows, like I said, they'll sell every one they can get. There's a lot of people that will happily pay markups, not only on Zs, but on lots of stuff. And so it's kind of just filtering those buyers, and it's just unfortunate for people who do have a tight budget, who do need to stick to a price point, and who, think that, I just talk a lot with the OEMs as far as, I talk to the PR people. I know the people that, do the product planning for a lot of these companies, and, try and come up with the best pricing possible. And so it's just, for me, it just drives me crazy to see the markups whenever car companies work really hard to make it really competitive, and, from a pricing standpoint and from every standpoint, and then the dealers completely ruin that. And the car companies are basically powerless against these dealers because of these crazy laws in America. And so as a result, it's like, the car companies have their hands tied. Like, these car companies do not like the bad PR of everyone complaining about markups, but they can't do anything about it. And that's, some have tried, like Ford's trying to rein in these dealers on the markups on the Lightnings and the Mach-E's and everything. But it's just, this is what happens whenever it, turns out to be a seller's market, is it's just, consumers lose in every way, unfortunately. So, and that's honestly why I've seen a lot of, honestly, all of these car review channels, my channel and most other car channels in the past year or so, have had a big drop in viewership. My channel's down a good bit. A lot of other channels are as well, because there's a lot of people, I think, that actually aren't even interested in cars this year. They're just like, you know what? I can't afford any of this stuff. All this stuff is going to be over sticker price. I'm not paying over sticker price. So I don't even care what the new Z is like. I don't even care what the new GR Corolla is like, because it's going to be way too much. I'm not going to watch the review until pricing comes down to reality, and they don't even care about researching cars. And I think there's a lot of that going on. And so that's unfortunate for me and all the others that do car reviews out there. But I don't blame people for taking that viewpoint either, because it's just like, it's so frustrating to walk into a dealer these days. And it's hopefully this stuff ends soon. I know Toyota, whenever I was at their headquarters and they were talking to all of us journalists in a big presentation, they think, at least as far as their chip supplies go, that things will be back to normal by the end or the fall of 2023, and that will continue to gradually get better between now and then. So I'm hoping that we see some real progress, into 2023 here. Then hopefully we only have another year or so of this madness, and then things will hopefully get back to normal. Fingers crossed, as long as World War III doesn't start or anything else like that. But as long as everything else in the world can stay chill for the next year or so, we can hopefully get back to somewhat normal. We'll see. But so anyone that's hoping for the light at the end of the tunnel, that's what I've heard is end of 2023. But anyway, I see we have a bunch of super chats here I want to get to. So Golden Trucker, thank you so much for the super chat. He says C6 Z06 under 25,000 miles, or C7 Z51 7-speed under 15,000 miles manual. Z06 going around 45 grand, Z51 they're in the low 50 grand. What are you thinking? So I mean, it comes down to, obviously, I'm sure you've test driven them, or you're going to test drive them to kind of get an idea. But if you haven't, what I would say is, the Z06 and the C6s are really a special experience. I reviewed one many years ago, back when I was really early in the reviews. But it's a special experience with that engine being naturally aspirated and a little bit higher revving. But the C7s are just so much better than the C6, in my opinion. I think they're livelier, they're more fun, they're sharper, the tech is better. I really love the C7s. I think they're super, super good. I think they're a pretty good value, or they were, especially they were going to be such a good value right before COVID hit, because they were like 35 grand or so. And then they just went through the roof like everything else. But if it were me, I would go C7. I tend to go for the newer vehicles typically, because I also like the better safety of newer vehicles, the better reliability of newer vehicles. So I'm always kind of biased towards preferring newer stuff generally, unless the older stuff is miles better. But I, to me, don't think a C6 Z06 is miles better than a C7 Z51 personally. Again, very different characters. Definitely test drive both before you decide if you can. But I would go C7, I think, personally. Hopefully that helps. But if you have any follow-up questions, I'll definitely try to keep an eye out for them as well. Mehdi, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, would you rather the Z or a supercharged GR86? I would go supercharged GR86. Partially just because I also really want to have a back seat, just because I have a daughter and I want to be able to take her places. And so two-seaters are completely out for me. But putting that aside, I still think I would rather have the GR86 with the supercharger over the Z, just because it's it's going to probably be still cheaper, and I think that the Z is not 10 or 15 grand more fun. Yes, you have more power, but if power isn't everything to you, and obviously a supercharged GR86 will be more power, but it's not going to be 400 horsepower probably still. So it comes down to how much do you value that extra power. The Z is super punchy, super fun, but I just think the GR86 just handles so much better and is a more tossable, fun little car. So I'd probably lean towards the GR86 still. But the Z, I mean, I don't want to throw shade at the Z either, because it is still a ton of fun. They did a really good job on that car, even if the pricing is not ideal in my opinion, it is still a really fun car. And so anyone who does have an order in for a Z, or who happily, is paying the markups, or, whatever, I mean, I don't blame you at all. I'm not against the Z whatsoever. It is a ton of fun. And I do love the retro styling and everything. They did a really good job. Just, I think personally GR86 is more fun per dollar in my opinion. Hot 1LE, thank you so much for the super chat as well. He says, thoughts on buying a V8 Camaro before GM axes them? 100%. And that goes for, anything like that that's, on its way out. I obviously the more collectible ones are going to be, the 1LEs or the ZL1s and that kind of stuff. But 100%, I still think the Camaro doesn't get the credit it deserves. It is still hands down the best handling of the three muscle cars. I think it really, even breaks out of it. It's a sports car. It's a full-blown sports car. It's not a muscle car anymore. It hasn't been for some time, but it's, something that I still think the Camaros deserve to sell better than they are. I don't know. I know the hideous styling they keep, doing on it doesn't help. And the marketing of it hasn't been great, but I still think the Camaros are so good. And yeah, buying a V8 one is definitely a good move, because it sounds like, the best case we can hope for is an electric one here, if they even do a new Camaro, in the future. We already see what they're doing with the Blazer SS. So yeah, there is no way there's going to be another V8 Camaro, I don't think, after this generation, especially with the sales. I'll be surprised if there's any Camaro at all. But yeah, I think buying one would be a solid purchase. Would definitely probably appreciate at some point and be sought after. And I mean, I'm pretty sure they built way less than they did of Mustangs and Challengers. So if you're looking Barrett Jackson 50 years from now, the Camaro is going to definitely be the rarer car too. So yeah, they're so much fun. I still love Camaros. So I see we had Tu Chang, I think, had another comment here. He said the RX name is unless they use the rotary as a range extender. That would be very cool. Yeah, if they want to make an electric thing and have the rotary range extender like they're going to be doing with the MX-30, that would be really cool. Yeah, we'll see how that pans out with that rumor. I am excited for the electric MR2 that's coming, though. That's going to be awesome. That, has been kind of teased in the concept that we saw with all the Toyota EVs they rolled out, earlier this year. But yeah, I'm excited for all the stuff Toyota has coming down the road. Omar says, with all of this, could we see a 2-year car release instead of every year? I don't think you're going to see them do that. I think, there's always going to be some company that will still go for every year just to try and have a competitive edge. I think we'll see stuff, go every single year. The only thing, if we're talking like a worst case scenario of, like cars missing model years or something like that, is if World War III or something does break out. And then, if you know your history, from 1940, the end of 1941, there's like a couple 1942 cars that were built, and there was nothing until 1946, essentially. Some very late 1945s, but so they basically quit building cars for 3 years because all those factories are building, airplanes and stuff instead. That would be the only way I would ever see cars missing a model year again. And even that would probably be a stretch, honestly. So other questions here we have, Coke Please says, good afternoon, Matt. Thanks for joining and for being a member here. I really appreciate that. Golden Trucker has another super chat here. Thank you so much again for that. He says, related to the Corvette questions, the new cars, 2023 Civic Type R, GR Corolla, 2023 Super GR Manual 3.0. We have 5 cars, 2021 GT Mustang. Thoughts on those? So if you're trying to weigh which one to get, again, it kind of comes down to personal preference, especially comparing the rear-wheel drive stuff to the, front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive stuff. They're all different, as far as how their driving characteristics are going to be. So it really comes down to what your preference is as far as, what, is the most fun for you. I personally love rear-wheel drive stuff. So of those 3, I would say the Super would probably be my pick because it's a blast. It's so much fun. It sounds fantastic, better than the other 2 are going to sound for sure. Super sounds better, is more exciting with the rear-wheel drive thing. It's the fastest of the bunch. I just think Super's super fun. So that would probably be my pick of those. But again, if you need 4 doors, if you need all-wheel drive, or if you like the front-wheel drive thing with the Type R, those are also going to be amazing cars as well. So again, all comes down to your personal preference and, what you prefer. But they're all great. They all have their places for sure. Shuante Vodner says, okay, so I guess He's saying happy birthday. I'm not sure, kind of confusing, but thank you for joining. I appreciate you joining the live stream here. I just don't understand your comment at all. It's all caps too. It's very bold. But thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. Bruce says, if you started your own car brand, what would it be called? And what would your first car model be? Wow, I've honestly never thought about that. That's a very good question. Yeah, I'd need a lot more time to try and come up with a good car name. As far as what I would want to do, I think if I were to start a car company, I think the glaring thing that I'm seeing with all the, news that I'm reporting on every week and the stuff I'm covering is that everyone is abandoning the affordable, like the actually affordable stuff. Everyone wants to go up market. Everyone wants to, be this premium luxury brand. Mazda's going up market. Acura wants to be up market. Everyone wants to, push up market. Honda Civic has to be super nice. And now they're $30,000 as a result, which is fine. They're all very nice. And I know with inflation, $30,000 is what $25,000 was a few years ago. And, there's all that kind of stuff too. But, I just feel like there's this huge gap of there's hardly any cheap cars anymore. Like if you want an actual car under $20,000 anymore, your choices are like, Mitsubishi Mirage, which is, a rolling beer can death trap in my opinion. And then you have, Nissan Versa, which is a little bit better for sure. And there's a few others. There's really not much. So I think if I were to do a car company, I would do actually affordable, cheap stuff, and I wouldn't be apologetic about it, and I would not try and make it anything more than it is, and I would just have it be cheap and very cheap, like not like a little bit cheap. I would be like, hey, do you want roll-up windows? You can have roll-up windows. Do you not want power locks? Do you not care about having a radio, or do you just want a radio? You don't need to have Bluetooth, or you don't need to have stuff like. I'm sure there's no business case for that. Otherwise, someone would surely have done that. But I would just make cars that I would make sure are safe. So I would want them to be super good with crash testing and stuff. But otherwise, I would make them be completely stripped out and have an actual bare bones car for someone who doesn't care. Because I think car companies don't realize there's a lot of people that just do not care about having heated seats or do not care about having smartphone integration or whatever the case might be. And there's a lot of people like that who just want good, reliable transportation. And even used cars now are so expensive that, that doesn't even make sense to buy used cars for most people these days because they're all grossly overpriced and they're all going to come crashing down, whenever pricing gets back to reality here in a year or two. So that would be my thing. Is I would just like have a car. My car company would be everything under $25,000. Deal with it. Like if you don't like it, buy something more expensive. But like that would be it. Like just cheap and see what happens. It probably would crash and burn. I'm sure someone else has had that idea before I have. But that would be how I would do a car company. I think because I just think there's way too much upmarket stuff. And I can't remember. I was reading a press release on something this week where they were like saying they also want to go upmarket. It was like an economy car. And I'm like, why do you think people want an upmarket economy car? Like, sure, everyone wants a Bentley or everyone wants to, have some, $1 million car if they can afford it. But like the reality is like people just, want something good and reliable and they don't care about all that stuff. But anyway, little side tangent, but great question, Bruce. I appreciate that. Fook M, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you for assisting me with the pronunciation. I'm terrible with pronunciations. I'm sorry. But thank you for that. He says, been a huge fan since the BRZ days, so would love to have your take on this. Love the new 86/BRZ, but boxer engine reliability is a concern. Won't mod or track. What's your opinion? So if you're not modding it or tracking it, I mean, like my old BRZ is a perfect example. It's at 140,000 miles. And from the Carfax, at least, it doesn't look like it's had any kind of major services aside from usual oil changes. I know there were a few people that had issues with them. And like, there's mild stuff. Like I know my buddy who still has his Scion FRS that he bought around the same time I bought my BRZ. I think he's up to he's at 90,000 miles or so on his. And he does have a very slow oil leak that every once in a while will drip onto his header, I think. But it's super slow, super rare. And I think, those types of things, that's not just only boxer engines. That's something that can happen with other brands as well. Boxer engines certainly are not the most reliable, especially when you modify them or beat on them. But like you said, if you're keeping it stock, generally they're not bad. I've seen that most 86s and BRZs typically seem to be pretty reliable. I don't know how long you plan to keep it for. But, I mean, personally, again, like I said, I would own a GR86 if I didn't have the Bullet, and I wouldn't have any real concerns about buying it and keeping it 10 years. It really is going to come down to again, what you plan to do with it. But I personally wouldn't be concerned enough to let it sway me from the greatness that is those cars. They're fantastic cars. The only thing I think that comes close to that fun for similar money that might be a little bit reliable could be the new Miatas. I love the ND2s, but that engine also has been hot rodded a little bit here to give it the extra higher red line and the extra power for the ND2s. So, I don't know. I haven't really, kept up with the ND2s reliability wise to see how they're doing with people that have a ton of miles on them yet. But, that could be the only other thing is maybe go for one of those. Cause I mean, that motor and that Mazda is super reliable. And if you want to go really safe, you could even go for an ND1. Those motors should last forever. And, then you have, a fun little, Japanese sports car, but still have, the super reliable Mazda motor in there. That could be, a decent option. But I wouldn't let the reliability sway because it's good enough. And, if you are really worried, there's also extended warranties you can buy and stuff like that to help ease those worries if you do plan to keep it a long, long time. But yeah, I wouldn't worry. Someone else actually did ask me about that not too long ago as well. And they were like, oh, BRZs are unreliable. But I don't know. I haven't seen that. Maybe I haven't seen enough of the forums, but from the stuff I've seen, there's a lot of high mileage ones, and maybe some others can chime in. Maybe Newt Media, I think he's probably keeping up on the BRZ scene a little bit better than I am these days. But I don't know. I haven't seen anything about them being horribly unreliable unless you're really modifying them a lot. And Newt Media says we're losing the true economy market as well with everyone trying too hard. It's hard to get something that's truly bare bones. He says the base Imprezas are decent though, which is that is a good value. You can get all-wheel drive for still a pretty cheap amount of money, so that's always good. But Brianna's chiming in that the middle class has vanished in America. Yeah, it's really concerning how there's this widening delta now between the rich that don't care about any of this stuff and and the people who really are struggling right now, and it really sucks. So yeah, hopefully, like I said, someone needs to start a car company that actually can cater to those people that are going to be a larger and larger percentage of buyers, I think, here going down the road. But Tu Cheng has another question here. He says, Matt, we all know you're in Toyota's pocket. I'm definitely not. What are you hiding in your garage, buddy? A GR86 Super LFA? I know, a Previa. You got me. It's a Previa. Those Previas are so cool too. But now, yeah, that's the thing. I am still totally unbiased. I have never been paid by a car company. There's some other some other car reviewers who, will do some sponsored content, or they will do, commercials for car companies in the past, things like that. But I've turned down that kind of stuff. I even had Lincoln did offer they offered to have me do one of their social media kind of commercials and have me do a feature on the Aviator. And I don't think it was even for my channel. I think it was actually just for Lincoln stuff. And I still even turned that down because I never want to be paid by a car company because I don't ever want anyone to be like, oh, well, he got paid by a car company once, so anything he says is complete BS. I don't want to ever be in that position. I want everyone to trust me and that what I'm saying is truly my honest, off the cuff, unfiltered opinion. And, for better or worse, thankfully, like I said, as long as it's fair criticism, car companies never have an issue with me. So the only time I ever had any kind of blowback was Lincoln actually got upset whenever I compared the MKX several years ago to the Edge, even though I said I would pay the extra money for the MKX over the Edge. I still was like, it's based on an Edge. And Lincoln didn't like that. I even mentioned the word Edge in their MKX review. That was the only time I've ever had anything. But even that, I mean, they've worked with me since, so it's even that. It was just an email I got. But otherwise, I've never had a car company ever complain about anything I've ever said. Anyway, Charlottetown Spud, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, do you think that Honda prices have gone up more than other car companies? Maybe it's just me. So I don't think they've gone up much more than the average. I'd have to look at the numbers. I'm sure there is, a comparison to be done there. Someone can crunch the numbers and see. I think there's been some that have been very much, a little more publicized, like the Civic Si going up in price, yet losing features. That kind of stuff doesn't rub people very well. I mean, I was also complaining about that in the weekly update. It's like, this is BS. But, I think I don't think Hondas have gone up much more than any of the others. And I think that, again, considering the market and what they're offering, they seem to be still in line with everybody else as far as I can see, from everything I've experienced so far. Integra pricing, I'm not super in love with. I'll talk about that in my Integra review coming here in a week and a half. But, I think that most of the stuff they price is, pretty competitive. I see New Media's chiming in about the FA motors there. So thank you for chiming in, Zach. I appreciate that. So hopefully that helps you out there whenever. I can't remember. Yeah, Fook, for you asking about the BRZ stuff. Hopefully that helps you out there, and I appreciate the assistance, Zach, and everyone here who chimes in. I love the conversation and everyone helping everyone here. It's a great community, and I also see that in the comments on the videos and stuff. So many great comments from people. It's always appreciated. So Mike is asking, any thoughts on the Lotus Emira? Seems awesome. I was super excited when they announced it, and I'd love to drive one someday. We'll see. I've never had a Lotus press car. I have no clue, how I even go about that. But I'm hoping to, test one out someday. Maybe if someone offers one to me once they, hit the market and stuff. But it seems like it's got the same, good reliable engines. And aside from, the Mercedes engine, we'll see, but at least the V6 version should be pretty solid and looks great. Nicely modernizes the Evora. Obviously, it's a lot more than just a refreshed Evora, but I think the Emira looks great. It's a great alternative to the Caymans and stuff. I'm hoping to see a good amount around here because I'm one of the few people in the country who has a Lotus dealer like 15 minutes from their house. So I'm hoping I actually see some Emiras here once they start hitting dealers. I'm excited to actually see one in person. But I think they did a great job with it from what I can tell so far. And Mike says, what do you think of Drive Time? They're a part of Carvana somehow. I'm not sure. I've never had any experience with them. I'm not sure what they're like. I've heard good things about Carvana. I think my father-in-law actually sold his old car to Carvana, and it was super easy. They literally picked it up on a flatbed, handed him a check, and that was it. But I've heard others have had some not so great experiences with some of these, online car buying companies. So, it really comes down to it seems like it's a different experience for everyone. It's not very consistent, unfortunately, but I think that's really the future of car buying, though, is online stuff. I think especially these dealers are sealing their fate. They are laughing all the way to the bank right now, but these dealers are going to be I think they're going to really regret their stuff they're doing right now in a few years whenever everyone remembers. I mean, people didn't like dealers already to begin with, and then you do this crap. Like, I think that Carvana and all those companies have huge promise, and as long as they are run well, I think that's the future of car buying, especially now that modern cars, a lot of them, it's not a big deal to test drive stuff as much because a lot of stuff, they all drive really well. Most cars these days are totally sufficient for everyone's uses, plenty of power for everyone's uses. Plenty of creature comforts and all that. Everything handles fine. There's very few truly bad cars these days where it's like, oh, I'm glad I test drove that because that thing is a nightmare. Like, there's very few cars like that these days. That used to not be the case. But so I think, these companies like Carvana and stuff where you can just click and buy, especially here in the Amazon generation that we're in, I think that that's going to be the way to go. And I think that's what, a lot of these car companies like Ford is trying to transition their EVs to only being sold online. And others, Volvo's going to having all their EVs to be sold only online. I think these dealers are really sealing their own fate here with the stuff they're doing. And Carvana and all of them are the future, in my opinion, as far as that goes. So Cook, please, thank you so much for the super chat here. He says, hey, Matt, I'm selling my Veloster N and getting an E92 M3. What's your take on both cars? I drove the M3 and just fell in love immediately. Plus, CarMax gave me a crazy high offer on the Veloster N. Well, obviously, I'm very sad to see the Veloster N's leaving Hyundai in general. And so, yeah, I don't know how, what's going to do pricing wise for them, but it's a very fun special car. E92 M3 is also a very fun special car. I would just say that if you're going to buy one, definitely get an extended warranty. I'm sure you probably are aware since, you've been watching the channel a good long while. I am very much not a fan of buying old German vehicles. They can be nightmares. All my times working at a dealership, were handling older German vehicles typically that had alarms going off in the middle of the night for no reason, battery drains that were, these phantom drains for no reason, lights on the dashboard for no reason, expensive servicing, expensive maintenance, just not reliable in a lot of ways. And then there's a lot of exceptions to that as well. I mean, I've talked to a few people that swear up and down like they do only normal maintenance to their BMWs and they run for 300,000 miles with stage 3 tunes on them and they're great. So I mean, everyone's experience will vary. But that E92 M3, that V8 is magical, but it is also high strung. They have had some issues from what I've seen as well. So just be prepared. You're not going to probably have as reliable of an experience in that M3 as you will in the Veloster N. It's a fantastic car. Again, everyone's risk tolerances are different, so don't let me scare you away from it. I personally, in a million years, would take the Veloster N over the M3. But again, everyone likes something different. Totally respect the decision to go for the M3. It's a fantastic, true sports car versus a Veloster N, which will always just be a souped-up economy car. That's what it is, and that's okay. But, it's a totally different class of vehicle. So I totally get the appreciation for the M3. And so, they're fun. I'd love to revisit them, honestly, the E92, because I drove them. They were some of the first cars I reviewed back in the day. And they weren't very well done videos because it was very rushed, last minute kind of stuff. And, didn't have as much time with them. It was like, ooh, I got to drive it for 45 minutes. And that was my whole review back then. But they're fun. They're fantastic cars for sure. And but that's my take. But hopefully you have good luck with your M3. Wish you the best of luck with it. And have a ton of fun because they are glorious sounding. They're so much fun. They're so well done for sure. But anyway, some more super chats here. Levante, thank you so much for the super chat here. He says, thoughts on the Maserati Grecale. My mother has owned her Alfa Romeo Stelvio TI Lusso for 3 years now. She was looking into the Levante, but then she discovered the Grecale, specifically the Modena. Yeah. They seem really cool. I think the Levantes are nice too. I mean, I did the GTS version, I think, several years ago, which is obviously, you got the Ferrari V8. It's a very special vehicle, but also another vehicle that's a little high strung and temperamental, probably. So Grecale seems fantastic. I think, I'm not sure the kind of experience your mom had with her Alfa Romeo. A lot of people, again, it's a hit or miss thing. There's a lot of people that swear they're super reliable and the reliability complaints are overblown. Some others, though, have had bad luck with them, so I think it's another kind of luck of the draw with that. Maserati is kind of the same way. I've seen, some people say they're totally fine. Others say, it can be a basket case. So I'm hoping that the newer FCA stuff is going to get better because I know that the Alfa Romeo Tonale engineer in a recent interview said that he's aiming for Lexus reliability for the next generation of Alfa Romeos. That could be extremely wishful thinking. I would certainly not put your money on that. But, if that's their goal, that's at least an admirable goal. And that goes to show that hopefully they will take the appropriate measures to try and have Lexus reliability and really over-engineer stuff and really make it solid. So I'm hoping that would trickle up to Maseratis as well, since they're all still kind of connected. Not the Tonale, I don't think that's connected to the Grecale really, but Grecale seems super awesome. And so if you were someone who's tired of everyone else's Macans running around, you want to have something that's unique, I think Grecale is going to be great for that. It looks fantastic. It seems like it's going to, sound pretty good and, have great performance. Yeah, it would be a great upgrade from a Stelvio, I'm sure, especially if your mom appreciates the, Italian engineering and just the Italian appeal of those vehicles as well. They're so cool. I still love the Stelvio. Another vehicle very underappreciated, the Stelvio and the Giulia. They got a ton of credit, from reviewers and stuff, but just did not sell as well as I had hoped they would. Goth Rocker says, thank you so much for the super chat again. He says, so now we know the truth of why you never got a Lincoln Continental to review. You turned them down. If they would have offered me a Continental as a press car, I totally would have reviewed it. I only turned down, I think it was on the Aviator where they wanted to do that commercial thing on it. But, I did the quick drive on the Continental and I loved it. But he says, still love my 17 Continental. Sad you never reviewed it. Mine is available if you ever need it. Yeah, you have to remind me of where you live again. And, I'd love to review it someday, but we'll see. I'm trying to remember I don't think the quick drive video did very well though. It's just on this channel, people really stick to the performance stuff. Understandably so. That's what I started the channel on really. So I don't, it doesn't surprise me, I guess, but the Continental would be a fun car for me to review. I don't know if anyone else would like watching it, but I would certainly like. I think that's another very underappreciated car, since that's the theme here we're talking about right now. It's just underappreciated stuff. Alfa Romeos and Lincoln Continentals. Linda, thank you so much for the super chat, and the very generous super chat as well. It says, any word on Beth's car and a few dollars for your daughter's piggy bank? Well, thank you. Appreciate that. The Beth car situation currently is, it is going to be coming in July, most likely. Her Mercedes lease is ending on Thursday, and we'll be turning it in then. So anyone who wants a very well-equipped, very nicely spec'd C300, Bobby Ray Hall Mercedes will be having that car turned in for their, the lease will be done here. And so after Thursday, she will not have a car until our new vehicle shows up. Still keeping that one a surprise, because I want to have a good explainer video on why we went with what we went with. Because like I said earlier in this live stream, every time I get a new vehicle here, there's always people who are like, why did you get that? And other people that are happy we got it. And that's a whole thing. So I want to make sure that whenever I do announce it, I have all my list of reasons and justifications for why we got what we got. We're really excited for it. And again, should be coming sometime in July. It's very inconsistent with the timing on everything right now. So it could come as late as the end of July, or it could come as soon as in the next week or two here. We'll have to see. It's kind of a guessing game still, unfortunately. Yeah, so anyway, yeah, it'll be soon. Sometime in July, we will have the announcement. We'll have all the info on it. And we'll have to see how it's received on the channel here. I know it's going to be a little controversial for sure. And so, that will dictate how many other videos I do on it. It could be a whole new source of content, because it's, anytime any vehicle that we get, regardless of what it ends up being, it could be something I can, do an ownership experience on it. Here's what it's like to own this vehicle. Here's what it's like to live with it, and talking more about it. Or if people are like, oh, that's lame, then maybe I'll just be like the Bullet, where, I'll just not really covered very much, because there's just not a lot to talk about, especially if it's an uneventful ownership experience. If it's a reliable vehicle and we don't have any issues, then, it'll probably just, be the car that Beth drives around, and, doesn't really get much mention. So it'll really come down to you guys, and, if you want to see more content on it or not. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. But, yeah, it's been a very interesting journey with Beth's car. It's been a winding road. Her first choice wasn't really something that was viable. And, so we've kind of compromised on a vehicle, but it's something we're both really excited about still. I think it's going to be awesome. So we'll see. But it's also a car that, we're going to be, seeing, it's something we could end up going into something new in a couple of years as well, and, get something totally different. It's not a car we're married to. So we'll have to see, what ends up happening with it. But I'm excited for it. I think we're both really excited for it, and it'll be good. Sean, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, woo, made it. How's the family? How's the Bullet? Bullet's doing great. Coming up on 4 years here. I'll be doing my 4-year video on it here in a couple of weeks. And otherwise, family's doing great. Beth and the baby are doing great. And yeah, it's super fun. The baby's walking now, so having her running all over the house is just a blast. And just watching her grow is just so exciting and so much fun. Highly recommend it to anyone who's on the fence about having kids. It's been a great experience. Lots of work for sure. Lots of work, lots of money, all that, but worth every little bit. It's she's a blast. Thank you for asking, and thank you again for the super chat and for joining the live stream here. Tu Chang says, if Amazon starts selling cars, 1, how would that change the industry? And 2, how many damaged or wrongly delivered cars would be delivered, and what would be the Amazon Basics car? Well, maybe the Basics car could be like what I was talking about earlier. If someone finally is selling a car with roll-up windows again and an actual bare bones car. That's a very funny question, but a very valid question, because yeah, there's talks. That was a few years ago where Amazon said they were going to start selling cars, and I don't know how that's changed. I think would certainly throw a wrench in the dealer model. So honestly, maybe the OEMs would love that, as long as Amazon stuck to MSRP pricing. that could be like the saving grace for the car industry, at least as far as the OEM side is concerned, because if they could just be like, oh, well, you could buy your car at Amazon for MSRP and they have an unlimited supply, or you can, get it to the dealer and have all the hoops you have to jump through at dealers, that could finally make dealers, start being nice again. We'll see, but that could be awesome. But I haven't heard anything about that in the past few years. It's been a long time since I've heard any follow-up on that. I wonder if they just dropped those plans or what, but that would be great if they started selling cars, in my opinion. And New Media says Acura had a few camouflage test cars running around here a few years ago. Haven't seen any recently. Yeah, I haven't seen any Acuras, but someone actually did send me some pictures a few months back that I think there was a refreshed TLX that was running around in Sewickley and stuff, and just a few minutes here from my house. And so that was pretty cool. I've never saw them myself, but someone local was able to snap some pictures, and I talked about that in a weekly update at one point. But it was funny, though, because whenever I was on the Escalade V launch a couple of weeks ago, I brought up to them, because every once in a while, it's been a long time, but every once in a while we'll see a GM vehicle in camo running around Pittsburgh here. And I brought it up to the GM engineers, and I was like, so like I've seen in the past, you guys, have some GM stuff running around every once in a while. And they're like, oh yeah, it's a good test thing. I think they actually said they like testing Super Cruise on the Pennsylvania Turnpike and stuff because it's so windy, which is probably why Super Cruise tests so well whenever I'm driving around my area, because they actually have tested it and had their engineers on the same roads that I'm on to make sure that it actually performs well there. But that was kind of funny to I didn't get really into it with them very much, but I was like, oh, you guys hang out around Pittsburgh sometimes. And, it'd be awesome if they started testing some of the cooler stuff. It's mostly just been like the more ordinary stuff, nothing too exciting, but I'm so bummed I missed out. They actually filmed the B-roll press footage for the Z06 in Pittsburgh, like going through the tunnels and stuff. And I talked about this when they debuted the Z06, but I was like, man, like someone should have called me, and I would have loved to have just been there. Even if I had to sign an NDA and swear I never saw the car, like I would have loved to have just been there to like see them filming all that stuff on the commercial for the Z06, like in my own backyard, basically. That was wild whenever I saw that they filmed that in the area. But Sean, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, kids are a lot of work. Dude, my daughter is 9, started acting like a teenager at 3. New boyfriend every school year. You don't have to tell me. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to some of that stuff for sure. But I love being a girl dad so far. It's a blast. But thanks for the warning there. I've heard the 3-nager thing is very real for sure. And yeah, it'll be a fun ride, I'm sure. But best of luck to you with the 9-year-old as well. Hopefully, it all continues to go well. I'm sure you'll agree. It's totally worth it, though. Newt says they're maybe driving around Pittsburgh to program the cars to dodge potholes. Yeah, that's certainly true. They need to do that. Although this year it hasn't been that bad. I don't know if it's bad in your area, Zach, but at least the roads around my area here, it's not too bad with potholes, thankfully, this year. So Newt says, yeah, they filmed all the track footage for the Z06 at Pit Race. So I guess maybe did you hear about that? I know you probably know Casey and some of those guys that are at the track a lot that might have heard about that. But yeah, I would have loved to have someone at GM drop me a line about that. That would have been fun for sure. Levante says, what is a concept car that you would like to go into production? For a while now, I wished Chrysler would produce the ME412 and the last gen 200 SRT6. Yeah, both those would have been great. I also was really excited for a Dodge Dart SRT4, and it sounded like there was one in the works, and then it didn't happen. And I was so bummed because going back to underappreciated cars, I thought the Dodge Dart was a really solid little compact car. It was like the first car in its industry to have that big 8.4-inch screen, like 5 years before everybody else did that. And I just thought the Dart was a really fun little car, had a good little engine in it, handled well, looked cool, good marketing. And then was a total flop for some reason. I have no clue why. Because the Neons always did really well for 20 years or whatever, and then the Dart just totally flopped for some reason. So that's one that was a bummer. Excuse me. But otherwise, yeah, ME412 would have been amazing. 200 SRT6 would have been amazing. I still wish the Crossfire would have stuck around longer. I've surprisingly been seeing like a fair share of Crossfires running around. I'm not sure why, but it seems like those are really having a resurgence in popularity. And I've actually seen my old Crossfire review has been getting some attention a little bit more recently as well. So I'm not sure what's going on with the Crossfire community, but those seems like the appreciation on this is going up real quick. So maybe that's one of the ones to hurry up and get in on before they start shooting through the roof as well. But as far as concept cars, that was your question. Concept cars that I wish would make production. Well, I think any Subaru, I would love to see them actually keep the concept styling for production. That'd be nice. But otherwise, concepts, I don't know. I'm trying to think of any concept that stuck out that I was really bummed about. There's nothing on the top of my head that I can think of. But, I think that there's a lot of concepts that I've seen, like, the Toyota stuff and, like the RX Vision concept that Mazda's doing. I hope they do put that into production because that thing was amazing looking. I really hope they, build something like that as well someday. And Tim says, hi, Matt, there are rumors that the LFA will be returning. What's your thoughts? Obviously, it probably won't be obviously it probably won't be electric of some sort. I think it will be EV. I think it's hard to keep all the sports car rumors that Toyota and Lexus strike. It sounds like they have multiple things in the works, which is a very good problem to have. But I think the new LFA was supposed to be electric, and then there's the GT3 car based new Toyota and Lexus. That is supposedly gas, obviously, because it's based on the GT3 car. And then, there's the rumors of the MR2, which is going to be electric again. And then there's also something about like Lexus doing another thing beneath the LFA. It would also be electric, I think. But anyway, getting back to your original question, I believe the new LFA will be electric. Again, I think that's several years off, especially, the Japanese stuff. They really take their time to make things perfect. So, it's probably gonna be a good long wait for that. But I'm excited for whatever they do. I think, everyone's realizing, okay, if we're going to do electric sports cars, they got to be unique. They got to have some kind of cool sound or some kind of gimmick to make them exciting. And we'll see how that evolves here over the next, several years. But I'm excited for a lot of the stuff. Even Ferrari this past couple of weeks talking about how they're going to have a very interesting sound component supposedly in their future electric stuff. And, I'm all for sound, even if it's not natural sound. If it sounds cool, if I sound like I'm driving around in a Tron car or something that's, or something that's from some sci-fi movie, like, that would still be fun. It would still be a different kind of fun, but it would still be really cool to have this crazy sounding thing that I'm driving around. And so I'm excited for the future. Obviously I will miss the stuff. I'm still going to keep my Mustang Bullet forever. And I love the V8 sounds, the manual and the smell of gasoline and all that stuff. But, I'm excited for the future as well. And I don't think there's anything to, be, too upset about. All the old stuff will still stick around and still be legal to drive most likely. So, we can still have all of our fun with all the other old stuff as well. But Tu Chang says, so being a dad, what's the one thing you would be a little sad that your kids are going to miss out on? I'm kind of sad they'll miss out on manuals and engine noise. Yeah, those two things for sure. I mean, I'm hoping to, pass the bullet down to my daughter and, hopefully still be able to teach her to drive manual and have the engine noise there. But obviously that'll be a classic car and, a little bit of a different thing than the mainstream stuff that, by that point, 15 years from now, there's probably not going to be hardly any manuals, if any at all, especially that are affordable, and engine noise will, I think, still be around. I think, I don't think things are going to go electric all overnight. The good thing to keep in mind is that the average age of the car on the road currently in America is over 12 years old. So if the average car on the road is 12 years old, even if everyone could afford an electric car today and everyone was selling electric stuff today, you then have to give it 12 years after that point for it to become an affordable used car for the average person or to be the average car on the road. That's 12 years from whenever that point is, which isn't today. So, I mean, we got a long ways to go. And so, that's why there doesn't have to be this like the sky is falling mentality about electric cars. Yes, there's millions of Teslas on the road, and yes, the F-150 Lightning is going to really take the world by storm, I think, and all that. But that doesn't mean it's going to be live, mainstream. It's not going to be a big chunk of car sales still for a good long while, I think. And so it'll just be the option of giving people the choice. Do you want to save money on gas or don't you? Do you want to, worry about battery replacements with old electric cars or don't you? You can go for the gas stuff still. You can go for the electric stuff. You can go for something in between with a plug-in hybrid or hybrid. and have whatever choice you want. I think that's really the smart thing to do. I think that's what Toyota's doing, is they're offering everything. They're not drawing a line in the sand on when they're going to go all EVs. They're not doing, because they know this stuff changes. They know that, legislation changes, and they know that, science changes, as far as how the climate is changing and all that. And those types of things, like Elon Musk has that thing out. I don't know how many millions of dollars he's offering. If someone can come up with a good carbon capture thing, if someone can crack the carbon capture thing in the next 15 years, then what we emit could be irrelevant, and then we kind of sidestep that whole problem, and you don't have to worry about emissions anymore. So there's still so much. 15 years is a long ways off. Like I've often said in the past on some of these live streams as well, that 15 years ago we didn't even have iPhones, and look where we are today. There was no such thing as a smartphone 15 years ago. Like, look how much the world has changed in those 15 years. 15 years from now, 2035 and stuff, whenever everyone's claiming they're going to go all EVs, who knows what kind of world we'll be living in. So I'm just focusing on the next few years, and that's it. Newt says, what are your thoughts on the Golf R in comparison to the S3? They're both on the same platform. Which would you prefer? So I kind of got into this in my S3 review, if you saw that, where I was kind of just basically saying, is it worth the extra money over a Golf R? Especially considering it has actually a few less features than a Golf R in some ways as far as luxury stuff goes. But I think if it were me, I would rather have the S3 if I could afford both comfortably. I would go S3 just because, one, I like the styling better. I don't care about the torque vectoring rear diff. I think the S3 still handles well enough as it is that doesn't sway me personally if I were the one buying it. I understand why some people prefer the Golf R over the S3 for that reason. I just like the nicer Audi interior. I think the S3 actually sounded a little bit better in my opinion. And it was also an apples to oranges comparison because I had a manual Golf R, which is going to feel slower than the DSG Golf R. And I had the DSG obviously in the S3. So, but obviously the S3 felt a lot faster than the manual Golf R too. So I think, for all those reasons, I like having a trunk. I know the hatch is a nice thing to have, but personally, I find that I feel like I have more space in a trunk. It's easier to put a stroller in a trunk and just lay it down than in a hatch sometimes, especially the smaller hatches like the Golf and stuff. So personally, I would go S3, but I can certainly see both sides as far as that goes. Alex says, love from Bangladesh. Thank you so much for joining, and I appreciate the support. Isaac says electric is the future. I think it's going that way. At least, obviously everyone has different opinions on this. And, I know recently it's also become a political thing as well. So it's a very tricky line to walk because I'm always trying to stay neutral as far as, you guys are here to hear my thoughts on cars, not on anything else in the world. But, I think that, the electric thing is going to be definitely a great transition thing. I think, if I'm looking 50 years from now, I think that I could more easily see hydrogen being a more sustainable thing for, the long term. But I also totally understand there's going to be evolutions to electric vehicle tech, the battery technology, to make them more sustainable, to make them easier to produce. Obviously, the recharge times are going to get better and the range will get better. They already are, like I talked about 2 weeks ago in the weekly update with the battery from RNX Energy. That company, doing 600 miles now in a BMW iX that usually does like 300 miles. Their Tesla Model S with that battery pack was doing 750 miles in the winter. They said it was like 850 in normal driving. So, I mean, there's a lot of potential there. And so honestly, they could evolve so fast, like smartphones, where it's just like, they're so easy to build and cheap and, recharge so fast and everything that maybe, everyone's just like, yep, electric is what we stick with. And that's it. We'll just have to see, how that all plays out and how the resources play out for all that stuff in the future. But I could totally see electric being the future forever, or again, being a good transition for the next few decades until hydrogen is something that can actually be worked out in the mainstream. We'll have to see, how that all plays out. It'll be very interesting. Never before have we ever witnessed this kind of a change in the car world. It's really fascinating to follow. And anyway, so thank you so much again, Isaac, for also being a member too. I really appreciate you joining and hanging out here on the live stream. Smile Per Mile says, "Hey man, have you seen the new Top Gun Maverick movie?" I have not. I've been wanting to see it though, because I've heard that's kind of one of those movies where, especially the aerial scenes, really, you have to see it in theaters to really get the full impressiveness of that. So it's something I don't want to miss out on it, but it's also a little tricky for me to get out to movies these days, just because I always like taking Beth with me to see the movies, and the baby's still being breastfed. So leaving the house for a little bit longer of a period is a little bit of a challenge still. And so we'll see, but I'd like to see it for sure. But I know my window's rapidly closing on seeing it in theaters, so we'll see. But I heard it was good. I love John Hamm, so I'm also excited just to see it for him as well. But yeah, I've heard it's good. Nude says, if hydrogen was widely distributed, it could work. Those types of stations are lacking here on the East Coast. Yeah, it's lacking everywhere, honestly. I think hydrogen could make a lot of sense for 18-wheelers and stuff like that, for sure. It's also a space thing currently, which is another thing where maybe that will evolve, but all the money for investing in evolutions of technology is all going for EVs currently. But if someone actually, was able to invest more in hydrogen infrastructure and into finding some way to store that energy better, I think it could make a lot of sense. But it's right now, it's just hydrogen is never going to work as it is, because Toyota's running that hydrogen powered Corolla race car in Japan that actually burns hydrogen in the engine chamber there, and it's basically the entire back seat is taken up by a hydrogen tank. So obviously it does not make sense for any kind of consumer vehicle. Obviously there's the stuff that uses the hydrogen fuel cells, which then is just still an EV essentially. So maybe that's how it'll evolve, is we'll just have the EVs but have them powered by hydrogen instead. We'll see. It's still, who knows, what's going to happen, but it's very, very fun to think about and just kind of imagine what can be and, see what happens. But, so yeah. And Franco says electric could be the CDs of the auto industry, be around for a time, but replaced by something better in the long run. Yeah. Anything's possible. It'll be very, very interesting to see. Bruce says, could you talk about your process for making your car reviews? Sure. I'm an open book. I mean, as far as car reviews go, it's a pretty systematic process for me. It's very formulaic, where I just, always do my stand-up thing. That takes me, about an hour or so to film the exterior and interior B-roll stuff and film my little stand-up thing. And then just usually, I do my little backroads drive in the first half of the reviews, and that usually takes me about an hour or so to film all that. And then, I drive around for the week and come back and do the other, 30-minute thing. But I think as far as my process, I just do my research ahead of time. I make sure that I'm, pretty well versed on all the specs, and I try and kind of memorize those, the day of filming the reviews, that I'm prepared and I know that kind of stuff so that I can rattle it off, off the cuff without having to look at my notes or a teleprompter or something, which can be a little bit tricky for sure. And that's the one thing I've heard from other people that either are journalists that don't do video, or from even the different people in the car industry world. Like, whenever I was filming the first half of the Escalade V review, the godfather of the Escalade, who's the guy who has basically done the marketing for the Escalade ever since the first generation, he was in the back seat while I did my first acceleration in the Escalade V. And he was even really impressed. He's like, how do you remember all these specs off the top of your head? He's like, I don't know how, it's that whole thing is one take. My whole first acceleration and me talking for 5 minutes after that is me just rattling off spec after spec after spec. And he was blown away that I was able to remember all that stuff. Because even, these guys that work on this stuff, that work on one car, I'll ask them a question and I'll be like, hey, what's the spec for this thing? A lot of them sometimes have to be like, let me check that, So I think that's one thing that always impresses some people is, just that whole part of the thing. And so, yeah, it's, that's the one thing that I think is, important for me, is to prepare and do my homework, because it's kind of amazing too. Sometimes I go on some of these press launches and, they give you the presentation for an hour or so, or sometimes it's a half an hour. And then they end, and then they have question and answer afterwards. And there's some stuff that some of these journalists who are, sometimes they're print guys, and, they're just kind of jaded and they don't really, they're not putting in 100% effort all the time, but they'll ask a question that's like on the first page of the press release, and it's like, dude, like it's right there. Like, or they ask stuff that I'm just like, it's kind of surprising. I think that's one thing I try and do to separate myself is I try and be really well prepared. I know I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, and I sometimes misquote a number, or especially for some of the used stuff, I'm not super familiar on the reliability of it, or I don't know the full aftermarket scene for that vehicle or something. So I certainly have some blind spots still as far as, I'm not saying I know everything about the cars when I'm reviewing them, but I really try and be, well prepared for that stuff. So that's one of the things that kind of goes into my process. But, after that, it's really the hard part is the editing. That's the part I hate the most because it takes 8 to 12 hours to edit every single car review you see. So, that's an entire day, sometimes 2 days of work to just put together a 20 to 30 minute long video. And it's not fun work. It's just me watching myself talk and making mistakes and sitting there wishing like, oh, I wish I would have said that a little bit differently, or I wish I would have done that better or whatever, and having to edit around stuff and trying to make things as best as I can. That's the part that's, not fun. And my dream would still be just to show up, talk, drive, and leave and have everything else handled by somebody else. But I'm not at that point yet. I don't know if I ever will get to that point. So in the meantime, I just, try and do everything as best I can. And hopefully you guys enjoy it and appreciate it. And I know many of you obviously that are watching this do, and I very much appreciate the support because that's what keeps everything going and allows me to still do my dream job here. So Smile from House says, totally respect your priorities, Matt. You'll appreciate the nostalgic 80s theme with some funny improvised dialogue in the new Top Gun 2. Nice. Yeah, I've heard it was really good from a fan service kind of standpoint as well. My one of my really close friends who actually got into the Navy partially because of Top Gun and how much that inspired him, he really loved it, had a good time in it. So I'm very excited for the new Top Gun movie. Tu Chang says, I saw a video online. Maybe an engineer could better explain this. If an alternator charges batteries and you put an alternator on each axle and on each axle of an EV, fill in the blanks. Yeah, it's I wish it was that simple. But it's kind of funny though. Speaking of EVs charging batteries, that's one thing I've been really surprised to see with a lot of these electric vehicles coming out is that a lot of them have issues with charging up the 12-volt battery because all these electric vehicles, they still have all their electrical systems on a little 12-volt traditional car battery just because it's easier, I guess, to keep those two systems separate because you can't have the super high voltage thing mixing with the low voltage stuff for all your accessories and stuff. And there's a lot of vehicles. I saw this on, I think the Volkswagen ID4s had this issue. The Mach-E's have this issue. Even Hyundai Ioniq 5s, EV6s, the Volvos, the Polestars, all these vehicles, there's been multiple reports of people having them just like brick or just like not start. And they have to get jumped and jump started from a tow truck or from a gas car or something else to start that 12-volt battery because the big battery pack isn't keeping them topped off. And it's like, that should be a simple line of code of like, okay, when the 12-volt battery gets to this level, big battery kicks in, juices it up because that it can transfer energy and power, and that's how they keep these batteries topped off. It just has to go through this conversion or whatever to go into the other battery. But it's like so many of these cars are having these issues, and it was widespread enough that early EVs, if you look at like a Hyundai Kona EV or a Chevy Bolt or something like that, they actually have a button that allows you to jumpstart your little battery with your big battery by pressing a button. So they knew this was an issue way back then. And I guess all these newer EVs are like, oh, well, we're beyond that. You'll never have a dead battery because, wow, you have your huge battery and it's, everyone thinks they're kind of the same thing, but they're not. And so there's been so many reports of very ironically dead batteries in fully charged EVs, which is kind of bizarre. And another thing where it's like, why is every car company having an issue with this? And why is there an issue at all? It's kind of funny. So not related to your question really there, but just kind of triggered that little thing that I've been seeing recently. But yeah, if someone can come up with an infinite energy machine of something that's, constantly able to run itself, that would be pretty brilliant. And yeah, Newt says energy is lost through other means such as heat, friction, etc. Yeah, that's why I can't remember what it's called. So maybe it's called like a perpetual motion machine or something is like technically impossible. But yeah, that would be cool. Maybe that's what the aliens have figured out how to do is how to have a perpetual energy vehicle. So Mike says, are you able to get any of the recent JLR stuff? Unfortunately not. Jaguar and Land Rover still are not able to send vehicles up to me because it's, about 250 miles from the fleet office in DC where I get all my press cars from. That's the same problem BMW has and a few other companies as well. And for JLR, I can understand it because, they don't have a big budget. They're small fleets. They're, not doing super well financially. So, I don't blame JLR. It's a sad thing though, because I would love to review the new F-Type and stuff like that. The F-Type is still a dream car for me, but unfortunately, I haven't been able to review any of that stuff, and probably will never be able to review any of that stuff unless I move or JLR magically gets a big budget where they don't mind sending a driver 4 hours each way to deliver cars for me each week. But yeah, the Defender is another one I'd love to review. Those are so cool. I see a ton of Defenders in my area. They seem like they're selling really well. So that's good, at least. Hopefully that helps out JLR. But don't know if I'll ever get a chance to review any of them, unfortunately. Smile Permal says, I really liked your My Week with GR86 and BRZ videos. As you were a first-gen BRZ owner, you highlighted nitpicks, and it showed how passionate you were about the Subaru and Toyota to get things right. Yeah, they were really great. I'm glad you enjoyed the videos as well. They're fun cars, and it was really enlightening. It really helped too to have my buddies Scion FRS to drive back to back. That really helped me to really have like a side by side. Like, okay, here's the stuff that is actually different. Here's how it feels right back to back, and really make it a helpful video for anyone thinking about upgrading to the new cars. And hopefully, people really appreciate that. And those videos have done really well, especially the GR86 one is, I think, almost like 50,000 views almost. So for me, that's really good. So I'm glad that it's really resonated well with people, and hopefully been really helpful for everyone. I'm glad you liked it as well. And thanks for your comments. Always Smile Permal. I really appreciate it. Robert says, what cars are you most excited to review this year? So second half of the year here, I think for me, it's going to be GR Corolla, Civic Type R. And those are really the top two, that I can think of. Because I'm really, the stuff I'm most passionate about is the more affordable enthusiast performance stuff. That's the stuff that's always been the foundation of this channel. It's the stuff that I'm most passionate about, what I think most of you are most passionate about. So those are the ones that always get me the most excited to review for sure. Beyond those two, yeah, I was very curious about the new Integra, and I currently have it this week as my press vehicle, and I'll be talking all about that in the review, which will be about a week and a half away. Aside from those, other stuff that I'm excited about this year. So I'm excited to hopefully get into an Audi RS3. Those are amazing. I'm very much looking forward to that. And beyond that, I'm trying to think of what else I'm looking to do. The F-150 Lightning, I'm very excited for. I'm still very curious about a Mach-E GT because I've never done the Mustang Mach-E GT. Seemed like it was really cool. I was very impressed with the regular Mach-E, so I'd love to try out a GT and see what that's like. Those are probably some of the top ones for me. So yeah, it's gonna be fun though. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'm missing here, but I think that's most of the stuff that I can think of. It's the big stuff for the rest of the year. So yeah, those are probably my top ones. And Robert's also asking, will you be reviewing a Kona N for my week with video? If not, I'll drive up there and let you review mine for a week. Unfortunately not. So I was actually supposed to have a Kona N dropped off here this coming week, and Hyundai is pulling it from the fleet for some reason the last minute here. And so they're trying to figure out what press car to send me last minute here for next week. I might just not have one, but yeah, so I don't know if I'm going to get another Kona N. Supposedly the one that was in the fleet here that I was supposed to get is not returning. So if they send another one down the road, I don't know. I will certainly gladly take one if they ever have another one to schedule me in. But as of right now, no more Kona N follow-up. Unfortunately, though, the Kona N review didn't do very well. I actually thought it was going to do a lot better than it did. It seemed like everyone was excited about the Elantra N, and very few people were excited about the Kona N. So, I'm probably not going to go out of my way to review another Kona N, but it's certainly if they can schedule me in one, I'd happily, drive it. I'm not sure where you're located at. I'd welcome the opportunity to drive yours, but I think, I really want to have one as a press vehicle so I can live with it for a week, because I've already done, a 1 day kind of video with it. So if you were to bring yours up, I very much appreciate the offer, but it really wouldn't add much. I think I would have to really live with a Kona N for a week to really kind of do a better video on one. So I'm hoping, I get another opportunity because it seemed like a really fun little car, even though it didn't handle as well as the Elantra N. I still think it's really awesome they're offering it, and I'm excited about it. But doesn't seem like too many other people are super excited about it, though, unfortunately. Grin says, what price range do you consider affordable? Love your videos. Thank you for watching them. I think for me, these days, affordable is the price range is going to continue to change as inflation continues to raise prices here and change what a $30,000 car means from an affordability standpoint, as far as whether the actual wages keep up with inflation, or if they don't, that's going to be a whole changing dynamic here for the next few years. But currently, I would say that an affordable vehicle for me, at least for my audience, I'm basically trying to aim for stuff. It seems like anything under $40,000 is still really expensive. And I mean, if I would have said that even 5 years ago, I'll be like, what? But with the way everything's going up in price, Civic Si is almost 30 grand. And like I said, all these other stuff, WRXs are $40,000 now for a fully loaded one and stuff, so that's kind of where I land as far as my rationale of what is affordable based on, what typically were affordable cars. And since nothing's really getting cheaper and everything's getting more expensive, that's kind of where it's crazy to say that, but since the average transaction price these days currently is, in the low $40,000 range, to me, that tells me that the average buyer is spending $42,000 on a car. So therefore it is roughly affordable, at least for a new car buyer in the market currently. So that's why I'm saying, around 40 grand, under 50, beyond 50, I certainly see, it seems like the audience drops off a little bit, where when stuff gets more and more expensive, there's less interest in it. And that's something why I really try and focus on affordable stuff, but also with, really affordable stuff, people also don't seem to watch as much, like that NB Miata review. You can get a nice NB Miata for $10,000, and that video totally bombed. No one watched it. So it's like, oh, well, I tried to do the affordable thing. I thought it would resonate with, people these days, since gas is expensive and, everything's expensive. It's like, here's a nice cheap car, and no interest. So, it's trying to find that happy medium of stuff that's interesting to people, but also kind of affordable. But I've learned my lesson to not just do cheap, affordable cars, because it seems like there's also not much interest in those either. So it's always a guessing game with YouTube as far as what's actually going to do well and what's not. But Tu Chang, I see you say, alrighty, Matt, I'm off. Got to go make the fiance happy. Well, have a good rest of your weekend. Thank you so much for joining too. And very much appreciate you being a member as well. So thanks for joining in. We'll have another 15 minutes or so here before we'll end the live stream. But Eddie says he'll never sell his mint condition 1989 Toyota MR2. Don't blame me for that. Those are awesome. I'd love to do that generation someday, because they seem super fun. The newer MR2 is also good. I wasn't super impressed with those, honestly, but those ones in the 80s and the 90s were so cool. And I don't blame you one bit. Keep that car as long as you can. It's going to be amazing to have. I'm sure it is already, but to have it even in the future is going to be awesome. So hopefully that'll actually appreciate nicely for you as well. So Jonah says, when do you think the car market will come back down to reasonable pricing? So I touched on this a little bit earlier. What I've heard, so at least whenever Toyota was talking to us at their headquarters, there was a big press conference they were doing. They said that, at least as far as Toyota's inventories are concerned, they think that they will be fully caught up and back to normal inventory-wise by like the fall of 2023. Is what they're seeing, and they say it'll gradually get better. So it's not like a switch is going to flip in the fall of 2023 and everything's going to switch immediately. It's going to be hopefully getting better little by little all through the next 12 to 18 months here. So I'm hoping that's the light at the end of the tunnel there. Again, it's going to totally come down to what else happens in the world, though. Obviously there's now a constraint on wiring harnesses, because the factory in the Ukraine that was building those wiring harnesses is now rubble. So, there's those types of things as well that, even if the chips get back online, if there's other stuff that gets taken out, especially if there's more conflicts in Europe, then, that's going to especially affect, the European car manufacturing stuff. And, that could also affect other car companies. Like, for example, the Supra is built in Austria by Magna Steyr. Austria is not that far away from Ukraine, all that kind of stuff. So if things really get out of hand in Europe, Supra is going away, G-Wagon's going away, all that kind of stuff as well. And obviously at that point we have bigger fish to fry than whether or not the Supra's in production. But that's that's the thing. There's all kinds of stuff that we're in such a crazy time. Everything's so unpredictable. But if everyone can actually stay chill and things can get back to some kind of normal as far as everyone acting not crazy, hopefully we can have things get back to normal by the end of 2023 is my hope. But we'll see what happens. Things could go totally the opposite direction and get even worse. Things could always get worse. So we'll see. Got to live in the moment and just appreciate what's good for now. And Jason says, I hope they're right. I've been telling folks over a year for a new Tundra, over a year to get a new Tundra these days at my dealer. Also, hi, Matt. Thanks for joining, Jason. Yeah, about a year is about right. So like even Beth's new vehicle that we're waiting on, I guess I can reveal that we ordered that early fall of last year. So we're coming up on about 9 months, maybe even beyond 9 months of how long we've been waiting for that vehicle. And we weren't sure we were going to take delivery of it. We just placed an order kind of as a placeholder thing. But that was, it was one of the cars that was in the running. And, so that's, we're seeing that ourselves. And that's why like Beth's lease is up this week, and we're going to have a few weeks where she's not going to have a car until the new vehicle arrives. And so that's going to be a little bit annoying, but that's just the reality of the market these days. Broly says, hey Matt, which one has a quieter ride, Mustang GT or Camaro SS? It's been too long since I've been in a Camaro SS for me to say accurately. Unfortunately, I'm trying to remember. If you watch my Camaro review, I probably will have compared the interior noise in that, but I don't remember what I said. And from my memory, they seemed pretty close, but it's really hard for me to say. And honestly, it's really tough to even judge something like that without doing back-to-back comparisons or, actual measured, readings on the same road and same conditions and all that kind of stuff. But they're pretty similar, I would say, from, my off the cuff memory. Hopefully that helps you, but sorry, I can't give you a better answer. Orion says, is the Mustang EcoBoost high performance pack worth it over the standard one? I don't know, because I only got to drive the high performance package EcoBoost for like 15 minutes on a quick drive event back in like 2019. I didn't get to spend enough time with it to really say for sure. It sounded, definitely more fun with the exhaust and had a little more power, which was nice. I don't even recall exactly what the price difference is these days on the versus a standard one. But the standard EcoBoost is also really solid. And the thing is, you can do some really great aftermarket mods to really, even put it beyond the high performance pack, probably for similar or less money. So you have to kind of just do that math and see what makes the most sense for you. But it's nice to have everything, with a factory warranty, have it bundled in with your financing if you're going to finance it as well and all that. So there's certainly something to be said for that package. And having the integration with the active exhaust built into the system and stuff is also something that is certainly probably worth it for that package. If it were me, since I'm not big into modding anymore, I would probably go for the high performance pack over a regular one that I would later mod or something. I'd just go for the high performance pack and leave it be. But I would have to spend more time with it. That's another vehicle. Getting back, if you watched earlier in the live stream, I was talking about how Ford is a little tough to get press cars from. That's another one. I begged and pleaded with Ford to send me the EcoBoost high performance pack back whenever they had them in the fleet a couple of years ago, and never had it sent my way. So wasn't able to cover it, unfortunately. Coke Please says, hey Matt, do you have any plan to review the G8X M3 or M4? I believe that's the new one. I'm a little rusty on all the generation terminology for the BMWs, but I don't think I'll be able to do the new ones unless someone offers them to me. I think I had one person offer me the M3, but they weren't super close. But I'd like to review them at some point. But BMW doesn't send me press vehicles, so I'm at the mercy of an owner offering one. And that's one thing too I do want to mention, because I think in one of the last live streams I commented on how I'm hoping to do more privately owned vehicles this year, just because now COVID has finally calmed down and I'm able to do stuff, a little bit safer. But unfortunately, with gas prices being as high as they are, it's actually now really tough to justify most of the longer trips that I have to do for a lot of the press, or for a lot of the privately owned vehicles that I, review and the stuff I've wanted to review. I have a long wait list of people with cars that they've offered me all over the country. And it's just a, quick road trip away from all kinds of cool stuff that I can, review. And so I'd like to, but I actually learned this the hard way with my GT500 review that I did, a couple of months ago, where I went out to film that. It was like a 3.5 hour drive to get there, and then 3.5 hours back. And with gas, even back then, I mean, it's even more expensive now. But I mean, even just that gas and then the tolls, I spent like $150 to film that GT500 review, and I mean, over time, the video makes more than that eventually, but the margins aren't great whenever I'm spending that much money on gas. So I'm gonna probably stick to mostly press vehicles the rest of the year. Unfortunately, I really was excited to do more privately owned stuff this year, but with gas prices, especially in the Bullet. I mean, the Bullet does almost 30 on the highway for the MPG, so it's not bad, but it's just, yeah, I can't justify it with the profit margins. If the channel was getting more views, then I could justify it. But the amount of views, like that Shelby video got like 24,000 views. Like I can't justify spending $150 to go film a video that gets 24,000 views. Like it's not worth it. So that's just unfortunately the predicament I'm in. Hopefully the channel continues to grow and gas prices come down so that, both those things line up so I can do more privately owned stuff eventually. But as of right now, it just doesn't make sense from a business standpoint, unfortunately. Car Dude 990 says, if you call Mercedes Financial, you can most likely extend the C300 lease for an additional month. Yeah, so we already have extended it 2 months. It was supposed to be done at the end of April, and the most that you can extend your lease by is 2 months, and then that's it. So we are at the 2 month. We did the extension. The only option now would be to buy it out if we wanted to keep it longer. But since the new vehicle should be arriving here sometime in July, honestly, I won't have time to even do the paperwork probably to buy it out myself and then resell it to then free up the funds to go to the new car and stuff. And also, we were going to buy it out, but this just goes to show you just how badly German cars depreciate. Is even with that lease, which we signed and set up in 2019 with normal residuals, normal leasing stuff, even with the crazy high used car values, that car is depreciated so much that it is basically a break even with buying it out, where it's the Blue Book value for trade-in is the same as what we could purchase it for. So I was hoping to have some equity in it. Like anyone else who has a lease on a vehicle that doesn't depreciate like it's falling off a cliff, you have some equity most likely in most of those leases. But nope, not in the Mercedes lease. It is still dropped, even with this incredible historically high market. It is still plummeting fast enough that it doesn't even make sense to buy it out. I don't want to shade the German car companies because they're very nice vehicles in a lot of ways, but it's like, seriously, like there's a reason why they depreciate so fast. It's because they fall apart eventually, and they're great for leases, but after that, forget it, in my opinion, unless it's something truly special like the M3s and things like that. And you're okay with spending the money to keep them running. But to me, they're great leases, and that's it. But yeah, that was really a bummer because I was like, oh, sweet. These used car prices are going through the roof. I'll be able to buy out this lease and make a few grand. And earlier this year, it actually did hold its value. And it was saying that, the buyout would maybe have, 4 or 5 grand equity. And I was like, all right, I'm going to buy it out. That was the plan. And then the used car market kind of softened a little bit, at least on Mercedes, in the past few months. And so it has dropped right down. So that thing is just getting dumped off to the dealer. Unfortunately, it's such a nice car. We spec'd it out so nicely. My wife did a great job of spec'ing it out. It's really nice. I mean, it's like the sticker price on that one was like 56 grand, fully loaded, basically. It just doesn't have like 1 or 2 packages, but I mean, it's got the open pore wood. It's got the upgraded screens, even the upgraded headlights that no one even did in 2019, because 2019, they were all standard LEDs, but we got the upgrade LEDs to do the dance whenever you put on the high beams and stuff. Super nice. We even got the cooled seats, which no one specs on a C-Class usually. Just all the nice stuff. It's so nice. It's emerald green, which they only did for 1 model year. Super rare. Whoever gets that car is going to get a really nice car. Aside from the reliability stuff, otherwise it'll be a super nice car. Just be a shame. It's just going to get dumped off, sign a few papers, and goes to whoever, and that'll be the end of that. So it is kind of funny too, because this is one thing about German. This will be my last thing I'll comment on. It's kind of funny, but getting back to German cars, they do have a personality to them, and I certainly learned with Beth's last Mercedes here that it does have a personality. It has this bizarre thing. It's unexplainable. I will never be able to figure this out. But every single year of the 3 years that we've had it now, once a year in the summer, when we're driving through downtown Pittsburgh and we hit a bump, only if those 3 conditions are met then the entire dashboard lights up like a Christmas tree. It gives me every fault in the book, and it just happened like a week and a half ago. And this was the yearly thing. It hadn't done it for a year, and I was driving through the city. It was summertime. It was a beautiful day. I hit a bump as I was driving through the city. Tire dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. Stability control is off, disabled. Automatic emergency braking. All the safety systems have failed. Blind spot monitoring doesn't work. See dealer immediately. Check engine light eventually came on as well, and it gave me all these things. It didn't pull back performance or anything. It was just like everything was lighting up on the dashboard like it was Armageddon. And then, with some of the stuff after one or two key cycles, all the safety lights went away, but then the check engine light came on, and that was the only light that was on. And then after 3 key cycles, that went away, and then it was fine. And we've had the dealer check it out the first time it happened 2 years or 3 years ago, and then also the second time it happened last year. Both of those times, they were like, "Oh, we did a reflash," and the tech drove it around for like 100 miles and couldn't replicate anything, and it was fine. But then it just like happened again. And so it's like, it's not a software issue. I don't know if there's just like one cable that's loose that causes everything to go haywire or what the deal is, but it's like hilarious that it always happens in like the same exact place, the same exact time of year, and it does the same exact thing. And it is just like hilarious, but it'll be dead reliable. It runs totally fine, no problems. And you can drive it. We drove it all over the place last summer, and it was rock solid. And but then you drive through the city on a nice day once a year, not more, not less, just once a year you do that, and it'll give you the issues. The other times it's fine, but that one time it's got to act up. It's so funny. So yeah, that is our Mercedes ownership experience with the C300 in a nutshell there. So fun little story here to end the live stream on. I see Dom has a question here. I'll do that as the last one here. Thank you so much for being a member as well, Dom. He says, "Hey Matt, do you think the U.S. will follow German and try to keep limited high-end gas vehicles?" I think the U.S. honestly is going to try and keep gas vehicles in general as long as possible. It seems like we're really seeing a lot of policies in America going backwards and not forwards as far as, progressing and stuff. So I think, as far as the US goes, who knows when, they'll do any kind of EV mandates. You might see stuff on a state level basis of selling, like New York might just quit selling, gas stuff, or like, California's talking about quitting selling gas stuff in 2035. So you might see some states phase stuff out. But I think as far as everything goes, as far as the rest of the country, I don't think you're going to see any kind of federal thing anytime soon. And that, of course, is going to depend on presidents and governments and Senate and all that kind of stuff, in the next couple of decades as far as how that goes. But personally, I think that it's going to be a while. If ever, I think, gas stuff is going to be pretty safe here for a long, long time. And like I said, the average age of the car on the road currently is 12 years. So, it's going to be at least 12 years from now before there's even a thought of any kind of, starting to roll that kind of stuff in, I think. But Orion says his girlfriend's BMW does the same thing with the weird lights. This is what I'm talking about. I don't know, maybe other vehicles do this, but I feel like it is only German vehicles that have those goofy things. And I don't get it. I love German engineering. It's fantastic, but just very, very quirky. So just be warned for anyone considering used BMWs or Audis or Mercedes or anything like that. They can be goofy. Sometimes it's harmless, like with Beth's Mercedes. It was totally harmless. It just freaks you out for a couple of minutes and then you're fine. But, still just interesting nonetheless. But Coke, please, thank you so much for the final super chat there with the exclusive emoji that you get to use in the live chats here in the comments from being a member. Thank you so much also for being a member. Coke, please. I really appreciate all the support, everyone. Thank you so much, Zach, also for moderating this live stream. I hope all of you have a good rest of your Sunday here and a great week, and just enjoy the summer as well. I'll try and do another one of these here towards the end of next month as well. And by that point, we'll probably have Beth's new vehicle. So maybe we'll do a special live stream kind of covering, kind of talking more about that. I'll be doing a video, giving all of our justifications and how we ended up with what we ended up with. But maybe it'll be good to do a live stream as well to kind of hash out some of your questions live as well about that. So that could be something fun to maybe do as well. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching this live stream once again, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you also for all your support on the channel, for watching the videos. It truly does make all the difference. Every view really helps and really counts. So thank you so much for all your support, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.